Welcome to the Pittsburgh Land Bank Board of Directors meeting for Friday, November 13th, 2020 at 1 p.m. Our first order of business is public comment. But seeing no public comment, we'll go to the roll call first. If the acting clerk would take the roll, please.
Reverend Burgess.
Here.
Dr. Bay.
Here.
Director Walker.
Here.
Senator Fontana.
Here.
Council President Cale Smith. Councilman Lavelle.
Here.
Director Mazza. And Director Wilson.
Present.
We have a quorum. Thank you very much. Our first order of business is for me to share a couple of things with you. We had November 9th and 10th, we've had executive sessions. We have executive sessions talking about the status of the land bank operation. And so we are going to share with you sort of how we are going to move forward. We look forward to having a land bank that is powerful. As you know, the City of Pittsburgh, along with the URA, has announced the Avenues of Hope, which is a historic opportunity to rebuild African-American communities. And in order to do that, in part, we need a land bank that can be used by the community. And we want to make sure that the community has full access to its land and participate in development opportunity. So I'm going to turn things over to Julie Edwards, who will now, from the URA, who will give a presentation of how we believe the new land bank will move forward. All right? Julie, it's in your hands.
Okay, thanks, Reverend Burgess. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everybody see that? Great. Yeah, so thank you so much. I'm here to talk about the URA's proposal to integrate the Pittsburgh Land Bank as an affiliate entity of the URA. So we'll talk a little bit about some recent structural changes that have happened at the URA, some affiliates that we currently have within our organization, how this approach will be different than the current agreement, and our plan of action. So first, over the past year or so, the URA has undergone some pretty big changes. We had a strategic plan created by HR&A advisors and have had some leadership changes, have a new executive director in place, and in April of this year underwent a reorganization of the URA. So our current vision is that the URA exists to support the City of Pittsburgh's economic development goals, which are designed to create a city for inclusive opportunity for residents, stakeholders, and communities. Our focus is implementing the City of Pittsburgh's economic development goals, which are what you see on the screen here, creating more housing that is affordable to the average Pittsburgher, encouraging more entrepreneurship and small business development, promoting inclusive growth and job creation, expanding neighborhood and Main Street revitalization efforts, and developing a talented workforce that is equipped with skills of the future. So the URA, like I said, underwent a structural reorganization in April of this year, and we consolidated from about 13 departments down to 4. This was an effort to improve communication, to stop the siloing that has been a legacy issue, and to make it more to make it easier for the end user to understand who to contact at the URA. So the new home of the Pittsburgh Land Bank, we envision, will be in our Development Services unit. So other departments within Development Services are our Neighborhood Development Unit, Pittsburgh Housing and Development Corporation, and the Pittsburgh Economic and Industrial Development Corporation. Just a reminder, a while back, there was a study done that looked at the different end uses for vacant and distressed parcels and looked at potentially which agencies could be involved. Wanted to highlight where the land bank was seen in this. First, under stormwater, so looking at things that were priority for PWSA in their stormwater plan. They see the land bank as being an intermediary there. Of course, under the developed parcels category, and then the hold category, again, as an intermediary. Wanted to give a current snapshot of the Pittsburgh Land Bank's budget. So this is a statement of cash flows from January through October 20th. Cash at the end of the period was around $396,000. Couple of notes here. There is a grant that's not included in this total amount. There's a $50,000 grant from the Heinz Endowments, and it has about $13,000 remaining. That's not included in the above amount. We did request an extension on this grant to use the remaining funds for quieting title and had a no cost extension approved through the end of 2021. Secondly, there was an invoice for the 2018 and 2019 audit that came just after this snapshot was taken, and that is not included in this either. Wanted to talk a little bit about current governance and operations to keep in mind while we're talking about how this entity will integrate into the URA. So the Pittsburgh Land Bank was created in 2014. It's organized as a single purpose entity. There's a 9-member board of directors, and the council legislation that created the Pittsburgh Land Bank shows how the board makeup needs to be. So there are 3 members that are appointed by the mayor. There are 3 members appointed by city council representing the districts with the most distressed vacant parcels. And then there are 3 board members elected by majority vote of the board, 1 resident of the top 3 most distressed council districts, 1 resident of the 4th through 6th most distressed districts, and 1 resident of the 3 least distressed districts. Currently, the URA and the PLB have a memorandum of agreement where the URA provides administrative services to the land bank. And again, the land bank's goal is to return underproductive real property back to beneficial reuse. At the URA, we have 5 affiliate entities, and I'm going to focus on the 2 that we believe are that we can model the land bank after, which is the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation and the Pittsburgh Economic Industrial Development Corporation. So the PHDC and the PEIDC. Those are our oldest affiliates. They've been around since the 1990s. We have our other affiliates have been around. One is new this year, and the others have been around for less than 10 years. So first is the Pittsburgh Housing and Development Corporation. It's organized as a nonprofit, and its board of directors are appointed by the URA. Its focus is housing development, single family neighborhood scale housing development. We believe that PLB can function in terms of operations similarly to the PHDC. Governance-wise, we think PEIDC is a good model. Again, this was organized in the 90s. It's a nonprofit, has a 9-member board of directors, and the membership appoints new directors. So there's a legal separation between the PEIDC and the URA. The URA and the PEIDC operate under an administrative agreement. So we think this is a good model for governance. We think that the land bank could model the PEIDC in terms of governance. I put together a chart just to help show visually the separation, the different entities and the separation at the URA. So again, because the PHDC is controlled by the URA appoints the board members, we see that as the least separate organization, all the way down to Invest PGH. When set up for its CDFI, it will have its own staff. URA staff will not be Invest PGH staff, and that's our most separate entity. We see the land bank fitting in right about here. Again, the land bank has its own board of directors, and that board is appointed based on the council legislation. So integrating the Pittsburgh Land Bank as an affiliate entity of the URA, how is this different? We think that there will be a new agreement that covers more activities and will be more specific in terms of services. There will be a schedule attached, and there will be costs associated. However, one big part of this is making the land bank successful. The land bank has struggled with some pain points for a while now that have limited its ability to fulfill its mission. So we believe we need to not only integrate the land bank into the URA as an affiliate entity, but we also need to work to address those pain points. So by adding staff and integrating the land bank as an affiliate entity, and by addressing those pain points, primarily the 3 taxing bodies agreement and the quiet title issues, we think that both of those things together can help to work to advance the PLB's mission of returning unproductive property back to beneficial reuse, modernizing the Pittsburgh Property Reserve, and serving as the property inquiry's front door for publicly owned property. Our plan of action is broken into governance, operations, and then a couple of phases of what needs to happen. So under governance, we need to draft a new agreement between the Pittsburgh Land Bank and the URA. Both of our boards will need to approve this, and we'll need to clarify in that agreement that a URA employee and a PLB employee are the same thing. The policies and procedures speak to Pittsburgh Land Bank employees, so we just want to make sure that distinction is clear in this agreement. The PLB board needs to appoint a new board member to replace Director Legger. And we believe it would be really helpful if the bylaws were amended. The check signing policy is a little bit of a pain point, and our finance department recommends actually setting the URA up for ACH transactions. So check signing policies are written into the bylaws. So I listed it under governance. We believe that amending the bylaws will make it easier to pay bills. Operationally, something I really want to highlight is there needs to be a full-time dedicated staff member to the land bank that is working to address these pain points. That's never happened. The land bank has never had a full-time staff member that's focused on addressing pain points and getting the land bank up and running. So we believe that there needs to be a posting for a Pittsburgh Land Bank manager, somebody to manage the land bank. To assist them, we'd like to continue to utilize our existing admin staff as they're available to help add capacity. And then the chart on the bottom right just shows what we believe will be done in-house and things that need to be done outside. So again, the PLB manager would be a new hire that would sit at the URA full-time to the land bank. Transactions can be handled in-house at the URA. Legal, we think we can handle some things in-house, but some of the more specialized things like quieting title, we'd like to hire outside counsel to help us get that done. Our finance department believes we can continue to do accounting in-house. Insurance needs to be separate. We talked to our insurance advisor about the potential to roll up the land bank's insurance under the URA, and at this time, the carriers need it to be separate. Any property inspections that need done, we believe our quality control unit can do that. And then property maintenance, the URA and the Pittsburgh Land Bank are already under agreement. They are in the URA's or the PLB's property is maintained through land care, through the URA's property maintenance program. So we've broken down the plan of work into 3 phases. First up is what we're calling the initial sandbox and the 3 taxing bodies agreement. So we really want to get the land bank transactional. We want the land bank to buy and sell property. So we've broken this down into a phase 1A and a phase 1B. And phase 1B addresses one of those pain points that I mentioned, amending the 3 taxing bodies agreement. So for phase 1A, we would look for properties that are city owned, that already have clear title, or we would look for properties that are URA owned, and we would look to transfer those to the land bank. The land bank would need to conduct its post-acquisition diligence that's described in its policy and procedures manual. So getting it put on the insurance, getting it put into land care, conducting an assessment, and then having the land bank go through its disposition process and actually convey property. We think that starting with a property that doesn't have quiet title issues is a way to get the land bank to have a quick win and be able to dispose of property. Phase 1B involves amending the 3 taxing bodies agreement. So we'd like to identify a list of properties that are city owned, that don't have clear title, and approach the 3 taxing bodies and look to amend the 3 taxing bodies agreement. So what we'll be looking for in the amendment is either to add the URA and the Pittsburgh Land Bank to the three taxing bodies agreement, or to have the city be allowed to assign its agency to the Pittsburgh Land Bank or the URA. Once the three taxing bodies agreement is amended, we would like the city to transfer a handful of properties to be determined the exact amount. The city would actually quit claim those to the PLB. The PLB would conduct its post-acquisition diligence, and then we would hire outside counsel to petition for quiet title. And then once quiet title is granted, we would look to take those through the disposition process as well. So that's phase 1A, amending the three taxing bodies agreement and actually getting the land bank to transact on land. Short-term staffing and administrative work that needs done to make that happen. We need to post for a Pittsburgh Land Bank manager position. Today, we'll be seeking authorization for the executive committee to negotiate with the URA on the new agreement. By the end of this year, we'd like the mayor to be able to recommend his new board appointment for the land bank, and then like to begin drafting that new agreement. In February, we'd like to have the agreement in a position where the URA's board can vote to approve it, as well as the land bank. We'd like to fill the board vacancy in February, and then we'd like to actually make the hire to hire the Pittsburgh Land Bank manager. In March, we'd like to be able to come back with an annual budget to be approved, and we'd like to hire counsel for quiet title proceedings. In May, about 90 days after the land bank manager starts, we'd like them to develop and recommend a staffing plan to the board. So that's kind of how we see staffing and administration playing out over the next 6 or so months. And then just want to note, any delays in personnel will delay this timeline. Roles and responsibilities. So detailed out here some roles and responsibilities for the URA. And when I say URA, I'm talking URA staff. And when I'm speaking of PLB, I'm speaking of the board. So we see the URA as the administrator, the coordinator, and the implementer. Our responsibilities are going to be to negotiate with the PLB board on a new agreement, to provide the services that are agreed to in that agreement, develop up the job description, post it, hire, develop up a long-term staffing plan, put together an annual budget for your consideration, acquire and dispose of property on behalf of the board, act as the point of contact for property inquiries, and submit funding applications as directed, and clear title when appropriate. The PLB board, your role is a little bit more literal. We see you as the director. Your responsibilities are to negotiate in good faith with the URA on that new agreement, provide direction and support to URA staff, to co-lead fundraising efforts with the city, with support from the URA to approve the annual budget. City of Pittsburgh, this will touch on city finance, city council, and the mayor's office. We see the city as a partner, and we see the city as a negotiator. So asking the mayor to nominate the board vacancy, to fill that board vacancy, city council to interview, co-fundraising. The city is the only entity up on the screen that's a party to the three taxing bodies agreement. So we'd like them to lead the negotiations of amending the three taxing bodies agreement. Because the land bank is going to be transacting on property, it's important to work with URA staff on the transfer of property. Clear title when appropriate. Continue to acquire property through the Second Class Cities Treasurer's Sale Act, and to finish conveying properties that are already in the Pittsburgh Property Reserve. So that's a snapshot of how we see roles and responsibilities playing out to implement phase 1. Phase 2 is modernization of the Pittsburgh Property Reserve. This is something that has been started but hasn't necessarily finished yet. We think this is important, and we want to keep working on this to get the Pittsburgh Property Reserve 2.0 up and running. So first and foremost, the city has agreed that anything that was placed into the reserve prior to August of 2019, they've committed to finishing it out through the current property reserve. So the Pittsburgh Property Reserve 2.0 would be looking at its first batch of properties would be the August 2019 treasurer sale, and its second batch would be the October 2019 treasurer sale. The city has not taken ownership of either of those treasurer sale properties yet, so there's a little bit of time in there. So we'd like to, work to develop up the framework and get input. And I left some TBDs here because we're not quite sure exactly how this is going to play out. This isn't as detailed as the first timeline, but this is kind of how we see it playing out. And again, the timeline's undetermined primarily because we don't know when the city is going to take ownership of those properties. But we definitely, before we start work on this, we definitely think that the PLB manager needs to be hired and on staff at the URA. Phase 3 is scale and grow. So the land bank needs to figure out, in accordance with its strategic plan, how it's going to long-term acquire property and then look to get it into a pipeline for disposition. So kind of the old image that we've been using for a while is, how is the land bank going to, take that property, clean it up, and convey it. As part of scale and grow, we'd like to put together the idea of the Pittsburgh property inquiries front door for publicly owned property. This is something that's been talked about for a while as part of the larger land recycling initiatives. So the property inquiries front door is like a one-stop shop for somebody that wants to purchase publicly owned property. Instead of kind of, contacting the URA and then contacting the city, they can go to one person regardless of who owns the property. We think this should be staffed and maintained by the Pittsburgh Land Bank. For this to happen, the city, the URA, and the PLB really need to work together to communicate about what's available for sale and regularly share data. We think that the best way to do this is to develop an embedded map that shows the publicly owned properties that are available for sale and potentially what programs they're eligible for, and make this map available on the Pittsburgh Land Bank's website. Ideally, individuals would be able to click on properties and potentially link to an application to purchase. Pittsburgh Land Bank staff would review those applications, answer questions, evaluate requests, and coordinate the appropriate disposition process. So on the right, we have an example of something that's as close as what we are thinking. The URA has an incentives map for developers. And on the next slide, I'll show kind of how this works. So this is the Middle Hill District, and you can see URA properties are actually outlined in blue on this map, and you can see their addresses. So if you clicked on, for example, this one's clicking on 2163 Center Avenue, you can click on that. You can see what neighborhood it's in, what business district it's in. You can see the parcel ID and link to the county's website. And then you can see on this map what incentives it may be eligible for. For the property inquiries front door, it would be great if you could link to the neighborhood plan and also link to an application to purchase. So this is kind of how we see the property inquiries front door working. Putting it all together, this is kind of a larger timeline to show how all three of these would work together. So phase 1A and 1B would run parallel. Phase 2 would not start until the land bank manager is hired. And then phase 3 would start sometime in 2022. Really quickly, just wanted to mention fundraising because that's probably on everybody's mind. I would like us to get a little bit further along on phase 1A and phase 1B, figure out what we're fundraising for. So identify which properties we'd like to go through phase 1A and phase 1B, develop up a budget, and show some small successes, identify partners and potential projects, and long-term work with the city to identify funding in its budget to support the PLB. And once we do that, I think we can start to reach out to funders to create a fundraising plan so that we can have some long-term financial sustainability with the land bank. So with that, that's our thoughts on how to integrate the land bank into the URA and also how to make the land bank successful. Does anybody have any questions? All right.
Yes.
No, Julie, I don't have any questions, but I wanted to thank you and the URA staff for putting such intentional thought into how we can resurrect the land bank going into 2021. I know that communities are wholly dependent upon getting that property reserve issue resolved. So the faster we can figure out some of the more administrative and legal issues that are present, the quicker we can try to make this a really vital tool for communities to advance some of those priorities. So thank you to the team for doing that.
Absolutely.
Julie, I have a question. Yes, so assuming you made a note that assuming that there are no delays in identifying the candidate and hiring that person, what's the most optimistic timeline where this is a tool that communities can use to start working on these community goals? Like, what's the best case scenario?
For the property reserve being up and running?
Right. But for you had the slide where you said, you know, you can go on an address in the Hill District, click on it, see what's available. Like what's the most optimistic timeline for, okay, we're ready, we're transaction properties, there's inventory, people are looking, like what's the best case scenario?
Yeah, so I think our first focus is going to be transacting on properties, and our second focus is figuring out the property reserve. I think sometime in 2022, we could look to see the property inquiries front door up and running.
Okay, thank you.
Rev, you're muted.
There we go. All right, any other questions? If not, I want to thank the URA, and particularly I want to thank Diamante Walker, Deputy Director, for all of her hard work and her staff's work and her presence on this board. I want to now, I think we need two different motions. One is a motion, I want the board to empower the executive committee to work out the details and to enter into a contract with the URA. We already have one. I'm not sure what we'll have to do legally. It may or may not have to come back before the board, but we've talked about this now twice. I think there's unanimous agreement. So I would accept the motion that you empower the executive committee to do whatever is necessary to make this agreement occur. Need a motion?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Second of all, I need a motion to then direct the URA to post the job to post the job position for the PLB manager.
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That brings us to the finance report. Mr. Clark.
All right, thank you. As part of your board packet, the 2018-2019 audit was included. There were no material findings and just one note, which was a recommendation that management team adopt some accounting principle guidelines. So the URA will work with its finance team to put something in front of the board probably in January, just to make sure those are adopted, but it did not impact the auditor's findings. So we ask that you review the audit, and if there are any questions, we can make either the URA's finance team or the auditor available next month or for individual sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then you have the audit in front of you. I need a motion to accept the audit.
Motion to accept the audit.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That brings us to new business. I do not have any new business in front of me. Does anyone else have any new business? Again, there is no public comment for this meeting. Is there anything from members of the board? I will say, after talking with the executive committee and the URA, if we need a board action officially, then I will convene you in the month of December. If we do not need a board action, I would probably not call a board meeting until January. But I will let you know depending on what we have to do moving forward. Again, I thank all of you for your willingness to serve. And I think we are in a good place looking for a brighter future. With that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Be a second.
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 All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. We are adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.